Now, to be told by the government that you have to hand over your home or your business is tough. But to do so and to be left waiting for a new home, a new business and compensation is even tougher. But that's what's happened to Craig Douglas, who was landlord of the Bree Louise pub alongside London's Euston Station and at the start of the high-speed link to Birmingham. Well, back in January, we spoke to Craig on the day he was due to close the pub doors for the last time. Craig had to leave his pub and the flat above it that had been his home for 15 years.
We were served a notice by HS2 Ltd that the good old Secretary for Transport would like to compulsory purchase order our property. We've been aware that it's been out there for a few years, to be honest, but we just never expected it this quickly. We literally had 3 months to plan packing up our life and obviously looking for another pub, which you can't do without any money either, and that's the compulsory purchase order compensation. We have no idea what that's going to be and probably won't know for another 3 or 4 months.
And nearly 8 months later, in fact, Craig still hasn't received any money and he has no idea when he's going to get paid.
We've spent our life savings. I've borrowed $20,000 at an interest rate of 3.4% from NatWest, and I've cashed in my smallest 2 pensions, which were worth $47,000, and that's where we're at the moment. And I'm probably going to have to borrow some money off my son in the next 3 months going forward.
Had you any idea that this would be how things would be when you left the pub?
No, of course not. We were told it would be 90 days, that we would get 90% of what, even if it was what they valued the pub at, not what we valued the pub at. But here we are 7 months later with nothing, still paying £1,000 a week rent for a house just north of Camden.
Have they at any time offered you any compensation?
No, none whatsoever. No, they never did. Well, we never owned the building. We were leaseholders.
It would be quite hard, wouldn't it, for them to give you an equivalent pub for the very successful one that you had right by Euston Station?
It would be almost impossible. And, I'm sure that they'll try and argue that how could a pub like ours, the size it was, etc., take so much money? We grossed 1.5 million last year, 1.2 plus net, which was backed up by our accounts, my VAT returns.
So you're saying that they in a way they think you're claiming too much for the pub, that you're exaggerating what you took?
Quite ironically, our first claim that we put to them, that was backed up by a prophetical November-December, was at about 2.4 million. And they refuted that and changed that because of the fact that they wanted real figures for November and December. So now we've got a claim that's got in that's somewhere between 3 and 3.6 million.
Have you spoken to others in your situation?
There's a lot of people in far worse situations than us. They didn't have life savings like we do or resources that we have. I feel for them more than I do for myself.
That's Craig Douglas. We did ask HS2 Ltd to come onto the programme. They declined our invitation, but they did tell us that Craig hasn't put in a claim for compensation yet. When he does, they say they'll assess it. Well, listening to that is Sarah Beer. Sarah is head of the HS2 advisory team at Wright Hassel Solicitors. They've been representing some of the people who've had their homes, businesses and land compulsorily purchased for HS2. Sarah, there seems to be some confusion here. Craig says he's got the paperwork sorted. They say they haven't had a compensation claim from him. What do you think is going on here?
Yes, it sounds like there's been some initial discussions, certainly, for a claim But it also sounds like there needs to be some clarity from HS2 as to exactly what they need him to provide. He needs specifics and...
I mean, what is specific? Can it really be right that someone has to spend most of their pension and life savings when they've been subject to a compulsory purchase?
No, I mean, absolutely not. The compulsory purchase law and the compensation code is not adequate in my view, but HS2 really is pushing the limits and causing financial hardship for individuals and businesses up and down the line.
Are there rules around what people who have been subject to compulsory purchase have a right to expect? I mean, Craig said there that he thought that he would get 90% of at least their valuation of what he had within 90 days.
Yes, I mean, basically a claimant can make a claim for an advance payment. That's what he's talking about, and that's 90%, as you say, of either the agreed compensation or of HS2's assessment of compensation. Now, obviously, there is invariably a massive disparity between what HS2 say the valuation is and what the actual value of the land is, or rather what the interest, the property holder's valuation is. And yes, there are massive delays on payment of advance payments.
Do we know how many people are in a similar position when it comes to the HS2 project? Indeed, do we know how many people have been compulsorily purchased under it?
I don't have figures with me, but what I can say is that unfortunately, it's no surprise at all to hear of Craig's plight. We're acting for individuals, businesses, landowners across all three phases of HS2, and we're dealing daily with complaints against HS2 of late payments of compensation, reneging on agreements, aggressive tactics, being ignored. It's across the board.
I mean, HS2 also tell us, they say, you've got to get a compensation claim in and you need to take good advice from people. Do you think some people perhaps are trying to go it alone or don't quite know what the bureaucracy involves?
Well, to be honest, there is pressure to go it alone because a lot of the schemes don't allow you don't provide for HS2 to meet any of costs. So people are inclined to sort of try to minimise their... their costs outward before they get anything in. What we say is that actually sometimes you just need legal advice and guidance to be able to put you in the right position going forward.
Which of course also costs you money.
Yes, but the idea, the name of the game is to include that then in your claim for compensation from HS2 ultimately.
OK, Sarah Beer from Right Hassle Solicitors, thank you very much indeed.